Welcome to the Tomosi Business Training Series. The basis of these sessions is to support the Tomosi Group staff and management to raise their capabilities and performance. The series is also a platform to share our experience with young entrepreneurs, making an effort to build their startups in Uganda and across Africa.
The second thing to think about is called quality. Quality, if I could use the word control, I don't like to control, but you could call it quality systems. There is a tendency for us to produce a service or a product, but not think very much of who is going to consume it and what quality standard they will require of us. If I give you an example, if you take our parents in Mubende, in Masaka, in Gomba, in Isinjiro, in places where we grow coffee, you'll see that there has been increase in coffee production. More plants of coffee have been planted across the country. That's the reason you are able to produce 7 million bags. But when you ask yourself what goes inside each of those sacks of 7 million bags, you'll find that the drying was poor, there's mixed stones, insects, and the cost of winnowing, of removing the chaff, even you transport and think of other things. That cost is so high that it makes what would have otherwise been good quality coffee or good quality maize or good quality beans fetch a lower price, simply because at that farm level, I have not generated the necessary understanding as a household and as a team to ensure that come and buy, whatever it takes, I'm going to produce a good crop and fetch a higher price. That doesn't mean you are a university graduate. It simply means that you know what it takes to control quality so that you fetch a higher price, and therefore when you export, you are better than your competition. The other thing that follows this is processing. In Uganda, we like the word value addition, and I think it's a good word, because all of us can increase production, all of us can try and control the quality, but to add a little more value and ensure that, for example, it's not an animal put on a truck from the farm, brought to Lufura here in Kampala, and it is cut, and meat is put on motorbikes, on bodabodas, and delivered in homes. That's as well, that's food. But you have not, for example, cut that meat in portions that are necessary for another market to give you a higher price. You have not processed those offals in such a manner that out of them you can get many other byproducts, including manure that goes back in the gardens now to produce crops. You have not thought of the skin around the animal and how to treat it in such a way that it adds value onto the animal you have sold. You have not, here we have entezetuite nganda, zinezama yembe. Those horns, God put them on the Nganda Nkole cows deliberately, just so that you can make pendants, you can make buttons. There are many things that can come out of that. To get a farmer thinking holistically, not simply seeing what I get as just a raw product, is an undertaking. It's a huge undertaking. We think that educated people are the ones who should think that way. But I want to implore you young people who are entrepreneurs, who have some businesses, to always think of what is the value add in terms of this product before I take it onto the market. I can take this to even people who are spending time building services online. When you go online, there are things that stop you and they force you to watch. But there are things in the same category that you don't spend 30 seconds looking at because the design, the quality, the lighting, the text is shallow. And therefore, if I can hold you 5 minutes online, I can sell you something. It is adding value to the content that you produce online, the same value you're looking for to the maize, to the beans, to the animal that you sell. Let's go on. I think that the fourth one, there are many, but I'm just summarizing them for you to understand what to do to get into the export and trade of that very market we have spoken about from the very historical communities we've been talking about in the last 4 weeks. The fourth one is, of course, finance. This is one of our biggest issues in our economies. Economies that do not generate enough savings, have not generated enough stored wealth that is reinvested in the very communities, but has to wait on savings of other people to be able to build their roads, their hospitals, their businesses. Now, we understand in the West, credit is a huge thing. Nobody stores $1 million shillings, if I use it hypothetically as an example, to start a factory of 10 million shillings. What they need is a good idea, because there's capital waiting for good ideas. And that good idea, they need to show very small equity. In an idea of 1 million shillings, my equity can be 100,000. But I'm committed. I have tested the idea. I can go to the stock exchange and raise money. I can go to a bank at very low interest to raise money, because those societies have stored enough savings over time and they are looking for good ideas. In our countries, where either you have multinational corporations bringing in their capital to extract your raw materials, your resources, your labor. Look at our labor going to Northern Europe or South Africa. South Africa is okay, it's part of Africa. But our labor, very highly trained, going in developed markets to earn a living, it shows you they are following where capital is easier to where capital is low. But the question for me always in my heart is, we can speak about these issues until the cows come home, as they say. But what am I doing as a young person, understanding that I have a stable country, I have a stable neighborhood, I have increasing population, and I have ideas. What am I doing as an individual, as a household, as a community, to ensure that I am adding on to the stock of capital or finance, to ensure that when I borrow once, I will not borrow twice. When I borrow once, I can strengthen that and also lend to another person. These 4 things are critical to strengthening trade and export. I now want to go to the other side. The other side shows us that even when I have done production increases, had good quality, have added value, and I have had a little access to finance where it's possible, and I will speak about finance later a little bit more. Once I have had these, what should I do to ensure that I strengthen promotion in those markets where I want to sell? The first activity to think about is the simple one, yet very difficult. What information do we have? There's such a thing called information asymmetry, that you have a product, but you do not know what the other market wants. In other countries, what they do, they send trade representatives. Let me just use as an example. You can take a trade representative to the market of West Africa. West Africa eats a lot of fufu. Fufu, I think, is pounded yam, and I think pounded yam and something else. Let me use example in Nigeria, I know very well. There's something they call jollof rice. It is normal rice, but it's mixed with a lot many things that it is so hot that it is typical Nigeria taste buds. If you want to supply jollof rice, shouldn't you spend time understanding how hot, how cold, how much on a plate, when it is cooked, how many customers, so that you have the necessary information to produce the rice of the size that will make jollof rice and strengthen your commodity or your product. So the first thing is get information about the market in order for you to respond to these. The second thing is to do with enterprises that are forward-looking. Enterprises, I could call this enterprise development, to develop the enterprise itself. Often we create businesses with a view of simply stopping in our neighborhood. I think one of the reasons, and this is my theory, the reason we build in road reserves, for example, there's a road, it's going to Hoima, but I want to fight to build right on the tarmac. It is because largely I don't see myself growing beyond the customer who has showed up either driving on a hump and sees something in a shop, this is my only market, or I'm simply going in that road reserve in the hope. Munange nandibadde wano tomanya. Tomanya is meaning that tomorrow maybe they will pay me. There is no long-term planning. There is no seeing the business as external looking. If I have to grow this business, I probably don't need to build it in the road reserve. I need to unite with my friends and we find a place which is a display center and we aim at a market larger than the community that we see. I can understand human nature. Often people start businesses to compete against their peers. But your peer, in my industry for example, my competition is not necessarily in milk from the very other producers, 16 of us in the industry. We are one of the smallest. But my biggest competition is the numbers of Africans that don't have access to good quality milk. They are in South Sudan, they are in Nigeria, they are in Somalia. And what's my larger competition? That probably Japanese can sell yogurt online when they have never owned a cow. That should be my focus. If someone can sell what they don't own, how about me, who has traditional knowledge, who have understanding, who have the best weather? What can I do? So the competition, young people, should not be about peers, because each one of you, katonda yakuwa omwoga, a vocation, a calling. But I need your businesses to be forward and outward looking instead of being inward looking. The third one, without taking a lot of time on this issue, is what we call brand building. Many of us don't aim at building a brand. I have trouble, it's actually not trouble, I think that's how I'm created. Images, signage, how things look, pretty much really help me understand the thinking or lack of thinking behind an idea. So often when I'm walking through our businesses, I want to change this, I want to touch this, and I am not doing very well in that area. But my eyes are open to the fact that people buy a brand, they don't necessarily buy a product. When I was a younger person teaching, I used to see the example, very common traditional example they say about toothpaste. Often Colgate will have so many brands of different type on the supermarket shelf or in the corner shop, many, many brands. The brands that come from particular seeds, brands for strengthening teeth. But a common person is really looking for Colgate, regardless of what's inside that tube. You can say that for many other brands. The reason Coca-Cola, which sells a lot of sugar all over the world, they are still advertising heavily in all territories. It is a brand. Out of the brand, they think of things like quality, which we spoke here. People associate quality with particular brands if you want to export. People associate a particular image. The product is a personality. Personality walks, breathes, has particular habits, so customers in that regional market are looking for the image of that product both in the home country and where they sell. And of course, this issue that beats us a lot, consistency. Am I there today? Will I be there when I am not here? And my son will be there, and his son's son. Will this product survive consistently? What kind of governance rules have you put in place so that a good product does not die because of lack of corporate governance. In my opinion, when we combine the issue of trade to open our borders and export, and we have an idea on how to do promotion, we are going to end up in one important point I want to share with you. So this was my point number one in regard to the borders that we've shared over the last 4 weeks. To use these borders, if some, a bad thing that we call a borderline divides us, but we stand on it to use it for good things. And one of the good things is trade and development and ensuring that we have an income. The second one, my second point, is this question of how do young people, therefore, get into this? Audrey is saying all these things that are much bigger than me. How do we actualize this? Now, for me, it's this issue of what we call, do you have an enterprise? Because this is a tool to execute. Without that tool, it's like you being in a garden without a hoe, or seated on a tractor without fuel, or seated in a car to go to Jinja, but the car has no battery, the car has no oil. So the tool to execute this, in my opinion, comes from if each one of us focused on being in a cluster of goods or services that will promote or fall in any of these things. We strengthen that which works for us by trade, by export, and we become participants, not simply people speaking. And that makes us wholesome and strong, and we take our place as Africans in the world. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
We would like to hear from you. Please email us at info@tapmedia.com and visit our website at www.tapmedia.com. You can also visit our offices located at Tomosi Business Park, Luzira, Port Bell Road, or call 0414 220 702. Thank you.